Nightshade Cult, a podcast macabre.
We bid you welcome. Enter freely and of your own will.
I'm Nick Grimm.
And I'm David Graves.
We will be your horror hosts for this dissection of Joe Dante's 1981 supernatural crime thriller, The Howling.
Good evening. This movie was a big surprise to me. I had no idea what to expect.
Yeah.
Because it's old as fuck.
It is old as fuck, and I was inspired to pick this one for a couple of reasons. The first one being we got a really good response on our Near Dark episode. Mm-hmm. And this movie has a similar relationship to American Werewolf in London that Near Dark has to The Lost Boys.
Yeah, it's like the ugly little sister.
Kind of, yeah. But then, there's the culty people that like, actually, this is the better one.
Yeah, same thing with Near Dark.
Yeah, and so Near Dark did really well. The cultists liked it, and I was like, well, then The Howling's the next place to go.
Yeah, this one, it really shows its age when you are, like, if you're not used to watching movies that are, like, over 40 years old, mm-hmm. you're not used to, like, intro credits like that and, like, really dated-looking graphics and stuff.
Yeah.
And so I was
very cutting edge, I think, 1981 graphics.
I was like, wow, this is so old. Okay. Just put your mind in neutral. Just enjoy this and try not to notice how old everything looks.
Yeah.
And that's cool. I don't know though. I really think movies kind of started hitting their stride in their 90s. Because you can watch movies from the 90s and it doesn't feel like ancient.
Not quite the way the 80s do. The 80s feel a lot older than they used to.
Yeah.
It's, I think the movie does show its age quite a bit. I think it's probably a more important movie than it is a good movie. But it is it's very significant in the genre. This is as far as I'm aware, this is basically the first time we see the modern werewolf, the sort of Werewolf the Apocalypse, mm-hmm. fully upright with a big wolf head, like 7-8 foot tall, huge. This sort of werewolf. Yeah. Up until this point, the standard werewolf was the Wolfman.
It was more wolfy, mm-hmm. A little smaller.
Yeah,
I don't know.
More man.
Yeah, because men are bigger than wolves usually mm-hmm. in mass. So the hybrid would be smaller than a man and bigger than a wolf.
Yeah.
But these are fucking huge killing machines.
Yeah,
with super strength and regeneration and stuff.
And, you and I spent a lot of time playing World of Darkness games mm-hmm. and Werewolf the Apocalypse. This is a huge inspiration for that game because it introduces ideas like that there's a secret society of
like werewolf politics.
Mm-hmm. And there's conflict amongst the different werewolves about how they should interact with human civilization and, like, a lot, Werewolf the Apocalypse borrows a lot from this.
Yeah, definitely. I think that when they were writing that game, they must have watched all the werewolf movies they could find, and they grabbed little concepts that they liked. And
this is if you have like your first edition werewolf books, they have like a little section of like movies and books and stuff to mm-hmm. read and watch, and this is like one of the first ones
for sure. Yeah, so I'm excited to talk about this because it's, like you said, it's probably more important than it is good, mm-hmm. but I don't think it's bad.
No, and it leads to a lot. Like, it's Joe Dante gets the job directing Gremlins because mm-hmm. of this. Our star Dee Wallace, she gets the role in E.T. because of this. Like, it's like the launching point for a dozen careers, basically.
Yeah. All right, so you want to jump into our Dark Tidings?
Yeah, let's do it.
Roll for initiative. I got an 18.
I got a 10. You go first.
Nice. All right, so this is kind of a slow news session. So I just got some fun ones here.
Okay.
We got some more information about, we like monsters here. That's kind of our jam.
That's our thing,
so Creature Commandos. We got news about Creature Commandos. James Gunn's first everything we know about this DCU project. Mm-hmm. This is going to be the first animated series from the new DC universe. We got all the casting, because these are all like voice like actors, and most of them aren't just voice actors. These are like fairly important big name actors that
and they're supposed to carry on playing the characters in live action.
Yeah, like I'm just pretty stoked about who they got. Like Alan Tudyk as Dr. Phosphorus. That's super rad. And David Harbour
as Frankenstein.
Yeah, it's like, oh man, it's so good. Like I'm and Anya Shalatra from The Witcher playing Cersei. I mean, they just got some amazing choices here. They really are spending some cash.
For real. Never in my life did I think there would be a Creature Commandos like animated series with a big budget cast like this, and that they would potentially be making live action versions of these characters. That's such a deep cut, obscure comic book that I feel very few people know about.
Yeah, it's interesting because they talk about how the bride is going to be kind of the main perspective. She's going to be the main character here, and so that'll be an interesting take on it.
She's a very cool take on the Bride of Frankenstein, a sort of Bride of Frankenstein as like a super spy type character. Yeah, that's going to be. I'm very excited for that show.
Yeah, I will watch this. I don't know where they're going to stream it. Obviously, it's a cartoon. So, yeah, okay, I'll watch. Definitely. Yeah. All right, cool. What do you got?
So, my first one is a little bit of movie news. Francis Ford Coppola did his first screenings for his self-funded big-budget film, Megalopolis. It's going to premiere at Cannes, upcoming on May 17th. And, a couple weeks ago on April 9th, he screened it in Hollywood for basically all the big studio heads. He's trying to get distribution and $100 million for promotion, and no takers.
Wow. It must be terrible.
It's...
or just too expensive.
Too weird, I think, is what it comes down to. The movie's too weird. What the word on the street from the studio heads and the people that saw the movie were that, a lot of them liked it, but they're like, there's no way to promote this. There's no way to make this a 4-quadrant tentpole blockbuster, which is the amount of money that Coppola put into it. And he sold off a big part of his wine business to fund this. Ooh. And so this is his passion project that he's been working on for decades now to get this made. And it's got big stars. It's got like Adam Driver's in it. And it's like, I think a high concept sci-fi movie. But he just can't find anyone to give him the money to release it.
$100 million is a big ask. It's really...
Well, that's $100 million plus whatever else.
Yeah.
Because it's, I think he put $150 million of his own money into making this. So he needs it to hit big to come out at all. Yeah,
this is not going to end well for him. This is going to be one of those things that ruins him.
This is not the first time he's ruined himself. Coppola is willing to risk it all for the art. And that's why we love him as a filmmaker. We launched this podcast with Dracula.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's got a tough road. So we'll see if after Cannes, maybe if it wins the Palme d'Or award for the festival or something, someone will be like, okay,
let's give it a shot.
75 million. Yeah. Let's talk. So yeah, we're rooting for Coppola.
Yeah, I mean, I hope to see it someday.
Yeah.
Hopefully it comes out, even if it's direct to video.
Rough. You sell off your winery and sink $150 million.
And then Netflix buys it for like $25 million.
Oof. Ooh. That would hurt. That would hurt real bad.
He's so funny. Oh, okay. So my second piece isn't even really news, but I thought it was amazing, and I thought the cultists out there would also really want one.
Okay.
This is a new product on the market.
Okay.
So imagine you want a robotic dog, right?
Okay.
So those exist. You've probably seen those things, and there's several options you can get for a few grand. Usually is about how much you're going to spend. What if a company was retrofitting those robotic dogs and selling them with a flamethrower attached?
Oh, I thought you were going to say Furby because I watched that video.
Oh, that is funny. It will shoot a 30-foot gout of flame from the flamethrower on the back. So there's an Ohio company called Throw Flame.
Okay.
And they're marketing their new product called the Thermonator. That is the world's first ever flamethrower wielding robot dog.
I don't know who was asking
and
for
this is legal.
Yeah.
It costs $9,420.
Okay.
I want one.
You want to,
but I don't want to spend $10K on one. Imagine you have a shitty neighbor. And you're just robot. Yeah, there's like, what the fuck is this? Boosh! There goes your hedge. What now? Because it's Wi-Fi equipped and Bluetooth, so you could do a lot with it. You could attach a walkie-talkie or put an app on there where you just say like, boosh, what now, bitch? It's like, this seems like a problem, but a problem I want.
Yeah. Are you having neighbor problems? I feel like this is.
Oh no, I had a neighbor problem a while back, but they've
been torched.
Yeah, they got torched. No, it actually had to do with fire. They were burning right on the property line, I just sent them a very nice letter, and several printed out legal codes, and saying I would hate it if you got in trouble for this. Anyway. I would certainly get in trouble with a Thermonator.
Those people would be like, that hypocrite. He's burning way more than we ever did.
Or you know how some ladies they go jogging or whatever, and they bring a big dog with them for safety. Bring a Thermonator.
That is quite intimidating. It would be good self-protection out on a jog. And they're pretty nimble, those robot dogs. I've seen them navigate stairs.
They basically do parkour. That thing can run anywhere I can run.
Yeah, this is how so many horror movies start.
Imagine
we put a flamethrower on the robot dog, and then you just cut to 10 years later. That's ashes.
Oh man! And then you installed an AI in it, and it started chasing people's cats.
Yeah, nothing could go wrong.
All right, you got another story for us?
I do, and this is it's a little bit of a bummer, and I don't think it's an unexpected bummer, but it had not ever been confirmed. What's the guy's real name?
It's no Thermonator.
Jon Snow. Why?
Kit Harington?
Kit Harington. He was doing an interview with Screen Rant, and he just let it drop that the Jon Snow show is no longer in active development.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure all those shows are going to go away.
Yeah, I think the Hedge Knight is the only one that's still moving forward.
And Blood and Fire, of course.
Yeah, which is that's not in development. That's happening actively. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And he said, basically, I got the whole quote, but it's a little bit too long. Essentially, they ran it around and they just could never come up with a story worth telling. Like they didn't know, because there's no source material for what happens at this point. And, you have a character in search of a story, and no one really had a compelling story on deck to tell about him. Yeah. And so they just pulled the plug, and he's still fairly optimistic that somewhere down the line, maybe they'll come back to this. But as of right now, the Jon Snow show is no more.
Well, I never thought that one would get made for exactly the reason it's not getting made. Yeah. There's the last 3 seasons of the television show were fanfic, and they didn't even end really where Martin plans to end the book series. So how can you make a show about that?
Well, it's just you you could come up with something, right? It's not hard to come up with something, but not something, in my mind, nothing that needs to be told. He's like, him going into the north or whatever, north of the wall, is like retirement, essentially, for him. There's no more big bad. There's nothing for him to do up there. Not enough to build a show around.
No, especially not more than, I don't know, one season.
Yeah.
And that wouldn't even be that interesting.
No, I don't. Unfortunately, I think that's basically where they came out. But that had been, I know that had been on a lot of people's kind of wish list. People were waiting for that one. And so it's a bummer, but it's good to just get the confirmation and know it's not coming.
Yeah. All right. Well, you want to take a quick break and then we'll come back with this dissection of the Howling.
Sure thing. After a near-death encounter with a serial killer she was profiling, a TV news reporter goes with her husband to rest and recuperate at a health colony on the Northern California coast. They realize a little too late that the people there are not what they seem and share a terrible connection with the killer.
Yeah, this movie has a pretty direct linear plot, but it's not exactly predictable. You're not really sure what's going on, so it kind of keeps you wondering.
It has two kind of parallel plots that you can feel are going to connect with each other, but exactly where they're going to connect is not clear until shit starts happening.
For sure.
It's already too late by the time people start putting the puzzle pieces together.
Yeah, this movie is man, there's a lot of storytelling elements that they really try to cram in here. Like the duality of humanity with civilized versus uncivilized.
Don't deny the beast within.
Yeah. Like that, what was that Metallica lyric? Like, it seems like some
Wolf and Men.
I think James liked this movie.
I think so too. Yeah, this is probably on his Werewolf playlist.
There's a lot of this movie has a lot of like weirdly sexualized scenes that didn't feel like they needed to be, but I guess that was a feature of like I don't know, like slasher screamer movies back in the day. You were expected to see some nudity in them. Yeah,
it definitely is. It's something that the studio wanted. This is a low budget horror movie, and Embassy Pictures honestly wanted more nudity in the movie than it has. There's nude scenes that were cut and certain things that were changed last minute to be toned down,
to be a little less rapey.
Yeah. So this is very. I don't want to brush over that the sexual assault aspect of this. Screenplay is by John Salas and Terrence H. Winkless, and it's based on a book by Gary Brandner. The book basically opens with a violent sexual assault. And it's very graphic and upsetting. And I felt like the beginning, before reading the book, I felt like the beginning of the movie was graphic and upsetting.
Yeah.
And then I went to the book and I was like, oh, they actually kind of made this a little more palatable than the way it's portrayed in the book. Because Karen in the film... she gets the trauma of being assaulted without ever actually being harmed. She's more threatened.
Yeah, it's like an illusion to it because she's watching a movie where it's happening. Yeah, and then she's threatened, and it's kind of like, I don't know, it's like layers.
Yeah, she still has all the trauma of the Karen from the book without us seeing her getting sexually assaulted. So it actually is softened a little bit the way it's portrayed, but I don't know if it's just because I've become more sensitive over time or the way our media portrays these sort of things has changed. I felt the beginning of this movie was extremely off-putting. Like I was like, oh, this is all hard to watch.
I was watching it in the front room, and Carrie looked over. She's like, "What are we watching?
Yeah,
this isn't cool."
I know. There's, so I haven't seen this movie since I was a teenager, and I recorded it off of, I think, TNT. I got like the first 3 Howling movies. They did a marathon.
Yeah.
And so none of the nudity and stuff is in the version that I had seen as a kid. And so there is quite a bit more in here that I was like, oh, I didn't know it was going to start out like this. I would have probably warned my wife what we were watching.
Yeah.
I was like, it's Joe Dante that directed Gremlins. This will be fun.
Yeah.
And she was like, this isn't what I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, it honestly wasn't what I thought it was going to be either. Yeah. The beginning of the movie is weird because the character Karen is like a news anchor, and they don't tell you initially why she's being bait for a criminal, but you suss it out, and as you watch that there's a criminal that's been like stalking her and whatnot, and she's working with the cops, and she's wearing a bug, and they're gonna catch the guy, and she is acting as the bait, and it goes all wrong. The bug stops working. She
like immediately.
Yeah, she goes into the back room of a spank tank porno place. Yeah, and the dude is in there, and like it's just like, this is so sus. Cops would they do that like back then? They wouldn't do that today.
No, there's I was like, there's so much unethical behavior in this movie. There's unethical behavior from the news station. There's unethical behavior from her therapist, like extremely unethical behavior.
Lure her to a werewolf colony.
Yeah, and there's unethical behavior from the police. The police actually kind of do their jobs, like because 2 uniformed officers actually kind of trail her and save her life.
Yeah. You got to also mention the unethical behavior from her husband, who strikes her. They try to make him out to be like a nice guy, but he's a piece of shit.
I rock with Bill right up until that point when he backhands her, and I said to Lisa, I was like, oh, there's none coming back from that. that was the final line. Well, you just can't cross.
And not to say that like domestic violence is ever justifiable, but it's not like she had hit him or thrown some shit at him and you could understand why he got heated. He was just being a dick.
Well, no, she caught him cheating
and was calling him out.
He
was in the wrong. You don't lash out when you're in the wrong.
I think a lot of people do.
Maybe you do, but you shouldn't.
But you shouldn't, yeah. But to be fair to Bill,
we don't have to be fair to Bill.
He is ensorcelled by a she-bitch in heat, as Karen calls it.
Yeah, that werewolf lady, she's pretty badass.
She full-on, like, zoinks him, like, gives him a magic potion and puts the whammy on him.
Yeah.
So he's not in his right mind. And you see it after he hits her. He's like, you don't know what it's like. He's being manipulated. But it's still not okay. Even when you're under a spell, it's still not okay to hit your wife.
That was a moment where I was like, man, I kind of liked Bill before this, and now not so much. Also, I guess it's just because this is from 1981, so all these guys, this is like 70s mentality.
Yeah,
they're just all a little bit free and loose with their behavior.
Yeah.
They don't really respect people very much.
I think what's funny is it's hard to see it now, but Bill is very much like a woke guy of 1981.
Yeah, he's a
vegetarian. His wife didn't take his name. Like, she's a professional in her own right.
Yeah, she's the successful one of the pair.
And he's just sort of her himbo. He has a couple gyms that he operates. Yeah. And he's very, like, he's going to this self-help retreat where they're going to do, like, group therapy and stuff. And, like, Bill is very much trying to be the modern conscious man of 1981.
Yeah.
And that still reads like a meathead in 2024.
Yeah.
You look at it and you're like, geez, Bill's kind of a caveman, but he's supposed to be very progressive.
The true caveman is the therapist who's just a straight up snake oil salesman grifter.
He is. He just sort of looks for traumatized people to lure to his werewolf cult.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty
And
insane.
The movie, we're getting into all these themes. It's very much commenting on the time of this sort of late 70s, early 80s, self-help fads, cults, serial killers. It's very rooted in the cultural zeitgeist of that era specifically. I thought Eddie the Mangler was a reference to Richard Ramirez, the Night Stalker, but he didn't start his killings until 1984. So it might almost like it's the reverse. Like Eddie the Mangler is the inspiration for the Night Stalker and not the other way around. But yeah, I just thought like, oh, that's Richard Ramirez for sure. Like when we first see him, and it's like, nope. Not 3 more years until he starts killing people.
Yeah, that character is pretty creepy, pretty scary.
Super creepy. Yeah.
All right. So yeah, other themes we've got the whole loss of innocence thing. Like Karen basically has to go from being like, like a regular lady who with a pretty good life to experiencing trauma and then being disillusioned with everything because there's literally no support for her.
Yeah.
And then when she does get support from a therapist, he himself is an abuser.
Yeah.
So it's like, wow, this is like, this is brutal. This is grimdark.
Yeah. She's gaslit like at every turn, right? Because the therapist is basically giving her a line and Bill is downplaying kind of everything too. Like when she starts waking up to the Howling, the title of the movie at night, and Bill's like, oh, probably just a dog or whatever. And it's like, there's no way to confuse the sound of howling wolves with a dog or coyotes or any of those things. It's totally different. But no one is entertaining this idea when she says it. There's like, oh, you're just imagining things.
Yeah, basically they're playing off the whole "you're a hysterical woman" that kind of thing. So,
but having the pretense of it's that pretense of being understanding when you're absolutely not being understanding, it's pretty rough.
So, do you want to talk about the visuals in the movie, because that's a pretty notable part?
Yeah, the cinematography is by John Hora, and this is a gritty looking movie. Like, it's very much.
It is. It doesn't look polished.
It's not gothic horror, except some of the scenes in the woods kind of have that idea, but it's much more, like I said, like a crime thriller. Like it's much more. It's got more in common visually with Taxi Driver than it does with The Wolfman.
Yeah, it's definitely got that. That gritty kind of city, like dirty city. I wouldn't call it noir. There are some moments with noir lighting, but ultimately it just feels hard-boiled. I think that's the word I'm looking for. It's
super hard-boiled, and it goes from urban crime to sort of, I don't know, like redneck slasher, like Texas Chainsaw Massacre aesthetic.
Like Children of the Corn.
Yeah, and that's because Bob Burns was the production designer on Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and he was the production designer on this, and he dressed like Eddie's apartment and Marsha's cabin and all of that stuff, and so they got him for that Texas Chainsaw aesthetic, and he brought it.
I mean, that stuff was pretty cool. I also wanted to call out Rob Bottin, who did special effects on this, because these werewolf transformations, when you look at them through the 2024 eye, they don't look amazing, but they are damn good compared to a lot of other movies of the time, and they were groundbreaking. There were a lot of things where it was okay. So I was looking at the clock, it was like 45 minutes in before we got werewolf special effects, really. You got a little bit earlier on with Eddie when he's, or is that his name? The guy, he was all shadowed, but you don't get to see much. It's like they're foreshadowing. And then you don't actually get real werewolf effects until about 45 minutes in, which is like halfway into the movie.
Yeah.
But then you start getting some close-ups of it, and you see like the skin pulsating and the regeneration happening and all this crazy stuff. And these are all practical effects, obviously. And they were really pushing boundaries. They kind of reminded me of like Dragon Slayer with like early practical effects and stuff.
I thought of Dragon Slayer too watching this, actually. Yeah.
And I'm glad we watched Dragon Slayer, because I never would have. And I've had multiple conversations about dragons where Dragon Slayer came up.
Yeah.
That's an important movie out there, Cultists, if you want to talk about dragons.
Yeah, that is that dragon. Say whatever else about the movie, but the dragon himself is
the best dragon.
Yeah, Vermithrax is iconic for sure. So just piggybacking off of that, Rob Bottin. So originally, Rick Baker was hired to do the effects on this, and he started developing it and everything because he'd been in pre-development for American Werewolf in London, and he didn't think that movie was going to happen.
Ooh.
And so he was like, I'm going to take the stuff that I'm doing for American Werewolf in London, and I'm going to use it here in The Howling. And that actually lit a fire under John Landis. And so American Werewolf went into active production immediately once The Howling was about to poach their guy. And so Rick Baker had to leave and go to work on The Howling because that was his previous engagement. And he's the one that suggested Rob Bottin, and he said, I'll consult him, but he can do it. He's a young guy, but he can do all of this stuff. And so he passed the torch over to Rob, and it was iconic, like the stuff he did. And then this just kicks off a many decades career that's still going of doing amazing visual effects.
Yeah, I thought that there was his take on werewolves was really cool, how they were large and man-like. Although I will say there was one part of his werewolf that really stuck out to me, that in an absurd way.
Okay.
The ears.
Oh, you think they're too long?
They're huge.
They're really tall.
They're huge and spiky almost. Like, it was like, fuck, did you make those out of plastic? Like, because they don't flex. They're like spikes on the top of the head. They're giant ears.
They are really big. And it's it gives it that, when you think of like the Howling werewolf, like the silhouette of it, those huge ears are part of it.
It's like Batman.
It is. Oh, it is totally like Batman. Yeah, they're very big ears.
They're bigger than Batman's hood.
Yeah, it depends on it's like the Kelly Jones Batman. It's the uber gothic Batman. Yeah. Like it's the very, very tall ears. I thought the thing that I don't like is the stuff where Eddie's forehead is bubbling.
Yeah, I don't like that much either. It didn't remind me. It didn't make me think werewolf. It made me think like Toxic Avenger.
Yeah, like the stuff where the snout elongates.
That's cool.
Is incredible. The stuff where the claws break through and his fingers are bleeding. That's really iconic. I used to draw pictures of that all the time as a kid.
Speaking of drawing, all of the drawings in this movie are great. I love the drawings of the skull morph and
that are like Eddie's.
Yeah, all of the actual just art.
Yeah,
this movie is really cool.
I wonder who did that. If it's Rob Bottin or John Hora, or if that's stuff Rick Baker had drawn. Because those are really cool drawings.
Yeah, whoever drew them is a very talented artist. It's very cool.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that stuff is all really cool.
And I have a thing for those kind of old school nature drawings, like Audubon Society bird drawings, and all these, like Lewis and Clark in their journals, they drew they drew pictures of all the animals and plants they encountered, and so I like that kind of thing.
And so does Eddie the Mangler. He draws as well as profile, like portraits of the women that he's stalking, he also draws landscapes and self-portraits and other werewolf portraits.
He is a very multifaceted character.
Yes, Eddie the Mangler is a fascinating werewolf.
Well, and Eddie the Mangler is a pretty cool serial killer moniker.
It really is. He's, this is an iconic. Eddie the Mangler should be up there with some of these other, when you think of the 80s slasher kind of horror guys like Leatherface and Jason. Mm-hmm. Let's get Eddie the Mangler put up there on that Mount Rushmore with those guys. He belongs. He fits.
Yeah, he with huge fucking ears.
Yes, with huge ears. That's driven him. That gave him a complex. Other werewolves have normal size ears. His are so big and pointy. Yeah, it's crazy. So we were talking about Rob Bottin's special effects. They shot this whole movie through with basically no finished werewolf, like no full body werewolf. Mm-hmm. They had hands and they had like a head puppet. But they didn't have anything for the full body shots or anything like that. And they showed it to the studio, and this is how they got the money for the reshoots that they needed to kind of beef up the movie. They're like, this is what we have right now. If you give us a few more grand, we'll give you a fully functional werewolf, and we can really push this over the line. And what they had so far was strong enough that they were like, all right, here's some more money, get it done.
Yeah, like there are some really cool scenes with full-on werewolf transformations, like with what's his name, the vegetarian husband guy, when his werewolf transformation, when he goes full-on wolf out.
Yeah.
In the barn, when they all wolf out. It's really cool.
Yeah, I love, we haven't really talked about him yet, but TC, the other Quist brother, his sort of halfway Galabro form is really cool looking, like where he's got kind of wolf eyes and a big forehead and fangs, but he's not fully all the way. And that guy looks like a wolf to begin with, so he's halfway there. It doesn't take a lot of makeup to get him over the line, but it looks really cool.
Yeah, I thought that the look of the movie was pretty cool, and it's worth mentioning that during key scenes, they do a lot of like fast cuts, shaky cam, and like visual distortion.
Yeah.
And that kind of makes it feel weird, and weird in an intentional way.
Yeah,
it makes it so that you never get a full look at the werewolf until they want to give you one.
Yeah, and that helps. That sells it more. The hint of the werewolf is scarier than seeing the whole thing because it can't move. Right, like when we actually finally get a full shot of him, he just stands there. He can't walk. And so it's like there's so many scenes with Karen and with the other girl where it's like, walk away. It's like, don't stay in arm's reach of that guy. He's not going anywhere. Just get the hell out of there.
Exactly.
Yeah. Anything more you want to say about visuals?
I was just going to say that I noticed a lot of the lighting was dynamic. It wasn't the same. It was not samey at all. So in all the city scenes, they used a lot of in-frame lighting sources, like street lights,
natural lights,
the light from the telephone booth, neon signs, all of those things. So in-frame lighting sources was really cool. And then they used a lot of darkness. Once they got out into the woods, they used darkness a lot. Movies nowadays tend to be a lot brighter than this movie.
That's very true. And I said natural lighting, and that's not what I mean, but more like what you're saying. It's like it's lights that you can see in the room. Like it is being lit by the porno movie that's playing and nothing else, or just one kind of incandescent bulb. It's the opposite of the near dark thing where it's totally unnatural lighting and where the light comes from doesn't make sense, but it makes the characters look cool.
It looks rad.
Yeah, this is like, no, we just light it with the lights that are in the room. Porno theater lighting.
And keep it dim.
Keep it dim, yeah. The less people can see, the more creepy it is.
Yeah. And that was all right. So we got the sound design and the audio and stuff.
Yeah.
I think the most iconic thing here is, the howl. That's the title. And this was obviously a layered sound with multiple howls. And they really did a good job here with multi-tracking so that the howl has kind of a supernatural vibe to it.
Yeah, I didn't see, there was not, in the credits, there wasn't a sound designer, but Ken Kang was the production sound mixer, so I'm going to give him the credit for this. There's a lot of really cool sound design. The werewolf transformation, they really, they add bone crunching sounds and things like that kind of sell what's going on, like what you're looking at.
Yeah, they added a ton of Foley effects, basically, just like
wishing and pulsing
claws scraping on stuff, like stuff they did back in the days of radio shows, where you have guys doing weird stuff with saw blades and stuff just to make weird sounds.
Totally. And I watched an interview with Joe Dante, and he was talking about how some of the things, that are maybe unintentional or maybe even malfunctions of the puppets, if you add the right sound when it happens, it feels intentional. So like maybe it jerks weird, and then you put that bone cracking sound in, and it's like, oh, his bones are breaking and regrowing. Like your mind makes things make sense that is just sort of just the herky jerk of a weird animatronic. So I think if Ken Kang gets the credit for that, it's really good sound design.
Yeah, he covers a lot of sins.
Yeah, totally. And then the score is by Pino Donaggio. Really great horror movie score. I've been listening to it quite a bit. There's a couple goofy tracks that are very 80s synthy and don't fit the movie.
Yeah, it felt like there was some synth weirdness in there, and then some orchestral old school horror.
Yeah, and that's the stuff that resonates with me. I thought, like, this is a good werewolf movie score. And then I think the track's called Hunting Shadows, and it's when they're doing their coyote hunt kind of in the middle of the movie, and testing Bill out to see if he's a real man that can go out and kill things. And it's a very like polka beat. It's like bop 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 bop. It does like that thing. And I was like, man, as we're at the Ren Fair, all of a sudden it's been so moody and dark. And then right in the middle of the score is this pop pop song, and I was just like, I don't get this. I don't get this one. But Pino Donaggio, obviously, he's an Italian guy. They flew him out, showed him a screener of the movie. He doesn't speak any English at all. No one on the crew speaks Italian, so they had someone that spoke Spanish, and he spoke Spanish also.
Oh my god!
And so they communicated in Spanish to each other. This guy that doesn't speak English and this guy that doesn't speak Italian. And then he went home and scored the whole movie and sent it back. And it came out really good. Somehow that worked.
I would say that the score was pretty good. It's not amazing.
It's not my favorite.
But it's not bad.
Yeah.
Not bad at all.
I mean, I've listened to it a lot. It has got two skippers on it. And most of it I think is really good.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
So I guess we're moving right along.
Yeah.
We're into casting. There's a lot of people in this movie. And I'm just going to come out and say it. I didn't really like any of the performances in this movie. I mean, some of them were decent.
Yeah.
But I think it's just from the day and age that this movie was made, it feels so overacted. Everything feels ridiculously melodramatic.
Okay.
Like nothing feels scary to me.
Oh,
I mean, it's just like I felt like Dee Wallace, who played Karen, she was like just extremely overacted the whole part.
Yeah. So all the background stuff that I've watched, like the interviews, the cast interviews and everything, everyone talks about her method acting, where basically she was fully traumatized through this whole movie. Like, her anxiety level is through the roof. She's having nightmares the whole time.
That sounds very unhealthy.
Oh, yes. It sounds very unhealthy. She said that she had not figured out how to make a separation between her and the character. And for like the whole 8 weeks or whatever that they're filming, she lived as Karen White and was scared out of her mind the entire time. And it's, I think she's a very traumatized woman in this movie.
It just seemed so overblown. Like everything seemed extremely like she didn't shut down much at all. She just overblew everything. Yeah. It was, I don't know. I didn't love the performance. It really felt like a Scream flick, like, and I know there's an art to that and people love it, but I don't find that style to be compelling. Style of
acting, yeah. I mean, and obviously she got to be known for that because she did Cujo, where she's tormented by a giant dog kind of immediately after this. Yeah. Okay, up next, I've got Patrick McNee.
Yeah, I have Patrick McNee as well.
Dr. George Wagner. I recognized him as someone that I've seen before, but I didn't realize what it was until watching the interviews. This is John Steed from the old Avengers TV
From the
show.
Avengers, yeah.
Yeah, he's like the international man of mystery, pre-Austin Powers. And, he's a reliable character actor and a very unethical therapist.
Again, I felt like I did not enjoy this performance very well because, just realistically, if you met that guy, you would not believe he was a therapist. He's a doctor like Dr. Phil is a doctor.
Well, that's literally how we're introduced to him, is as a
Dr. Phil.
It's as a psychologist on a talk show.
Who would ever listen to this guy? He's smarmy and snake oily the whole time.
But he's
you
English.
would have to be a complete idiot to listen to this guy. He doesn't say a single useful thing to her in therapy.
No, he doesn't.
He just belittles her and basically tells her he gaslights her the whole time. It's
and re-traumatizes her.
Yeah, this guy is not a good therapist. He's not supposed to be a good therapist. He's a werewolf, but the performance just felt super smarmy. No one would trust that guy.
Yeah, I mean, Dr. Phil is the perfect pull because that is who he is. He's the talk show therapist. He goes on these shows and tells people that their problems are coming because they're denying the beast within them. Yes. And more quackery like that. I love his performance. And he gives basically my favorite line reading in the whole movie, or one of them, at the end in the barn when they're getting ready to kill Karen, and he shows up and she runs over to him and she's like, "Oh, Doc," and she goes for support and he just gently pushes her aside. He goes, "No." And they're just they're all werewolves, honey. If you haven't figured it out.
Yeah.
And even if he was the one guy that wasn't a werewolf, he's not going to help you. I like Doc as the terrible werewolf Dr. Phil.
Okay.
Werewolf Dr. Phil is probably episode title.
That is pretty good.
Yeah.
So I liked Dennis Duggan as Eddie the Mangler. No?
Chris Halloran is
did I get that
Dennis
wrong?
Duggan. Yeah. He's one of the two news reporters that's out there. They're
I got my notes wrong.
Yeah. I like Chris. I like Chris and Terry almost more than I like Karen and Bill.
Yes. Okay, yeah.
I think their kind of fact-finding mission in LA, while they're going around and investigating Eddie and going to his apartment and going to the occult bookstore, Chris is actually the hero of the story because he's the one that shows up at the end with the silver bullets.
Yeah.
And weirdly, Dennis Duggan goes on to be a huge film director, and he does all the Adam Sandler movies. So that is a very strange connection.
Yeah, that's weird. He's in a horror movie, and then he does a bunch of mid-tier, moderately funny movies.
Yeah, ranging from very funny to terrible.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's Adam Sandler's dude, his go-to guy. So yeah, Dennis Duggan, long career.
So who you got next?
My next one is Christopher Stone as Bill Neal.
Okay.
Like I said, I love Bill kind of right up until he smacks Karen. I have to say it. Marsha would have got me too. I would have totally
She was your cup of tea?
I was like, I guess I'll bring her the rabbit. I'm sure nothing could go wrong.
Yes.
Why not be lured to the weird witch in the woods that gave me the potion earlier? Yeah, it's I find Bill very relatable, but he does cross the line, and I don't support that. But yeah, poor Bill. I do feel for Bill in this story, and this is he was in IRL Dee Wallace's fiance.
Oh, okay.
And she kind of got him the part in the movie.
Interesting.
Yeah, which I thought was kind of another little fun connection.
Nice. So you got Slim Pickens in your notes?
I do have
as
Slim Pickens.
Werewolf Charlie.
Slim Pickens plays Slim Pickens in every single movie, and that's a fun thing to play. I like Slim Pickens. He's way more like jovial and funny than the book counterpart of that character, who is like terrifying and very menacing, like the archetypical sort of corrupt country cop.
Yeah.
This one seems like a comedic character right up until he's shooting at you at the end of the movie.
Yeah, he's like Andy Griffith.
Yeah, like, and he's like, oh, must have been a coyote. They'll be getting into someone's trash now and then. Like, it is very like, oh, this bumpkin cop, he's nothing to be afraid of.
Yeah. I mean, we could go through all of the werewolves. They're all characters in and of themselves.
I don't have all of them in my notes.
I mean,
there's a few that I really like, though.
Go ahead.
So, like, if we're talking werewolves, let's go John Carradine as Earl Kenton, the old man, the one he's upset about getting old. He's also got my second favorite, or probably actually, this is actually probably my favorite line reading. The humans are our prey. Like, I have just been saying that all week.
That's hilarious. He's definitely, if he's in Werewolf the Apocalypse, he's a Red Talon.
Yeah, he's like, we should have stuck with the old ways. And it's like, yeah, I like him, and they have that great cut where they're saying how like, there's not going to be any weird people when we get to the colony, and they cut to him at a hoedown, and he's in full like hillbilly dance mode, and like it's like, oh, the weirdest people you could imagine are at this colony.
Yes.
We got him, Robert Picardo as Eddie Quist, completely unrecognizable that this is that guy from Star Trek Voyager.
Yeah.
Until like watching the interviews, I was like, who does he play in the movie? And it's like Eddie Quist at the bottom of the screen. It's like, no, not. Yeah, it's him.
Wow.
Totally unrecognizable, complete transformation. And like I said, like intense monster movie serial killer, belongs on the Mount Rushmore with the other slashers. Very
gnarly.
Yeah. Don McLeod as TC Quist, the feral bro.
Yeah.
I like him quite a bit. And who's my last werewolf? Sexy ass Marsha, right? Where's
probably the best werewolf.
She is. Marsha, very seductive.
Marsha.
Elizabeth Brooks as Marsha Quist. I'll say she was an inspirational figure to me as a teenage boy. I found her very inspiring. I still do. I think she's a very
spooky werewolf lady.
Yeah, very sexy werewolf lady. And I get it. Bill. I understand what happened.
Yeah. So I don't have anybody else down. We covered all mine.
Kevin McCarthy as Fred Francis, the TV station president or director or whatever. Fucking dick. I just hate the guy so much. If I was them, I would have sued him 1,000,000 times over.
Yeah, but ethical work practices, it was the early 80s.
Yeah. But I mean, and that means I think Kevin McCarthy kills it, because I hate Fred Francis so much.
He was able to evoke emotions from you.
Yeah, and I guess my last one is Belinda Balaski as Terry Fisher, Karen's bestie and the journalist girl. She's like a real sort of scream queen. She did a lot of horror movies. She improvised the scene where she chops off
the guy's arm.
Obviously, she knew she had to cut the guy's arm off, but because of the nature of the setting where she's in this little shed and he's reaching through it and it's just her and the camera, there's no director in that. She just has to kind of act like a werewolf is trying to kill you, and it's one of the best sort of like horror scenes in the whole movie.
Yeah, so it was a good scene. She did really well.
Belinda Balaski, classic scream queen. Yeah. And I think that's it. That's all I got.
So what would you say in this movie is your personal highlight?
I've thought about this. So this is a weird one because I usually kind of pick one particular sequence. And this is actually a series of intertwining sequences. Oh. I like the middle of the movie where Chris and Terry are investigating Eddie. And they're going to his apartment and the bookstore.
Looking at the art and all that.
Yeah, and all that. And Karen and Bill are being sort of brought into the cult. And the two stories are running parallel to each other. And that's, to me, before we see any werewolves and we're just kind of getting clues, that's the tense part of the movie. It's definitely building.
It's building something.
Yeah. When I think about this movie, the scene that always comes to my mind is not any of like the horror stuff. It's always the stuff at the occult bookstore with Dick Miller as what's his name? Walter Paisley, that runs the bookstore and kind of gives them all the info on werewolves and crucially provides silver bullets. I think of that stuff as like, that's the part that stuck with me about this movie, is that sort of the mystery of what's going on and how the two stories run parallel to each other. All right. So that's not how I normally do it, but like, to me, that tense middle of the movie is my highlight.
All right.
What about you?
I mean, I think mine is fairly predictable. I really liked it near the end when I think the last act in general is the best part of the movie.
Oh, okay.
But I liked it when they were when they're in the barn all together and they have they have Karen there and stuff, and then flash forward a little bit. The building is burning down. They're locked in. You have the werewolves trying to claw their way out. Yeah. And I mean, that's all just really badass and grim. And then you have like
Chris just busts in there, starts blasting people.
Yeah. And then they're running away and you have the classic car won't start scene. And the werewolves are like trying to bust into the car. I mean, basically the movie got moving at that point.
It's intense. Yeah.
And so I just enjoyed that last, like, I felt like I wouldn't say bored, but it was a really slow burn going forward. The first part of the movie was really off-putting. Yeah. The middle of the movie got intriguing. Yeah. And then the end of the movie was action-packed.
It's all backloaded for the action.
Yeah. And so I liked that last part.
The barn and the escape.
Yeah, that was really good.
Bill bites Karen.
Yeah,
and then she kills him, or does Chris kill him? One of them shoots. I think Karen kills him.
It's pretty dope that she wolfs out on camera at the news station.
Yeah, and that's and she's a very cute werewolf. Like,
she's a little fuzzy.
All of the werewolves have been terrifying, and that's Dee Williams insisted on that she not be a scary werewolf. She wanted to be like a kind, like, she wanted the werewolf to reflect her inner character, just like, the werewolf reflects the beast within all of them. Hers is like a sweet puppy dog. It's like she doesn't have a ferocious.
Like, she's got some fangs, but she's not very scary.
Yeah, she eats dog food.
Yeah.
Like, she's much more dog than wolf. Yeah.
So what about this movie worked for you?
I like the way the movie comments on the climate of the time. Okay. Like, I like how it's making allusions to the serial killers and to self-help cults, and like Scientology is referenced, and and it's very much of that time. Like Karen's her bestie there. She's like, oh, I've tried everything. I did Scientology, transcendental meditation. She's like listing all these things off, and it was like it naturally led her to becoming a werewolf.
Yeah,
like
of course.
That was just the next thing to try out. So I think
I would try it.
Yeah. Oh, geez. If the colony's still there, I might stop next time I'm driving down the 101. So I like how it's commenting on the time. Rob Bottin's special effects, iconic.
Yeah.
This is, as far as I can tell, this is the first time we've seen the Krynos werewolf from Werewolf the Apocalypse on film. And it became the dominant way werewolves were portrayed for, 30 years afterwards.
Yeah.
It really changed everything. And the other thing it changed is werewolf mythology. It expanded the idea and sort of introduced these sort of intelligent werewolves with a culture and more control over their transformations and what they do. And so this movie just changed the way werewolves are portrayed going forward forever. And like the last thing is, like I alluded to, the parallel storylines. I think the way the two storylines run next to each other and inform each other is really well done.
Okay, cool.
What about you? What worked for you?
So my first point is similar to what you were talking about the concept and the lore of the werewolves in this movie is really cool. I like how they have this cabal and they're thinking, and they have a culture, and they have traditions, and they have internal philosophical differences on how to werewolf. I really like that. It definitely feels like Werewolf the Apocalypse was based directly on this idea. I think that the effects were definitely notable. I mean, it was notably cool. Some of them were much cooler than others. Some of it was pretty basic, but some of it was pretty good, and I liked it. I think that watching it now, it just looks campy. And then finally, I liked how it ended. I liked how it had a kind of a classic Hitchcock style ending where one of the werewolves from the cult got away because we see her in a bar, and so it's like, all right, that the bad guy werewolves aren't all gone. They're just gonna rebuild. It's the looming threat that remains. Obviously, they make more Howling movies.
They made 7 more Howling movies.
I can't imagine.
There's 7 more Howling movies and 1 in development for Netflix with Andy Muschietti directing. That'll be like a reboot.
I mean, a reboot would be cool, but I don't know if I want to watch any sequels to this.
Not even the Howling 3, the Marsupials?
Oh, gosh, no.
Didn't you think a werewolf would be improved by adding a pocket?
A werewolf pocket.
Yeah.
I like that. All right, so what didn't work for you?
What didn't work for me? Like I've said this already, I find the opening of the movie with the rape porn and that stuff just very off-putting. It's hard to watch.
Yeah, it's gross.
I do think they made an effort to soften the book there, and maybe this is the best way to portray it. But I don't think it's the best way to portray it, and I think you see more than you need to in that sequence.
Yeah.
And anyways, I find that off-putting. I think the storytelling gets pretty messy in the climax. I agree with what you were saying, that it definitely gets a lot more exciting, but the geography of what's going on starts getting real unclear as Chris is running around shooting people or shooting werewolves, and it's like
werewolves are people.
Yeah. At least halfway people. They're persons, at least. Yeah. I just thought it was very, like you said, it's a slow burn, and it's very methodical up until that point, and then it gets real hectic and sloppy there in those last few moments. And I found myself getting annoyed with the ladies for never fleeing. Like they fully stand there through like multiple minute transformations and just watch it and just watch. And like, you know, for what Terry, I think her name was, she gets strangled and killed because she stands there and watches his whole transformation. She should have hoofed it.
Yeah. Some people are too dumb to live.
I guess so. So those are the things that didn't work for me. What didn't work for you?
So it goes without saying, the first part of the movie was off-putting. Yeah. I mean, I understand they were trying to traumatize Karen, but I don't think they needed to show a bunch of a porno movie about a rape that she was being forced to watch to us. I'm just like, God, I don't want to watch this. Like, it just makes me uncomfortable.
You can make that
sitting here on the couch with my wife, and I don't want to see this.
Yeah, you can make it. And Joe Dante talked about that in the interview, where he's like, he talked about how uncomfortable filming it was, and I was like, well, yeah, you didn't need to do it. You know what I mean? Like, if everyone feels this way, like no one likes this, why are we doing it this way?
I mean, like, you could traumatize her, just have him like start strangling her or something. Yeah. I realize violence isn't great either, but it's a werewolf movie. It's going to be violent. We accept that.
Or you can imply what she is seeing without showing it.
She can just act.
Just like they do so much to imply the werewolves. Mm-hmm. You can imply the sexual assault in the same way. And have some
sounds and have her horrified.
Yeah.
Whatever. Okay, so I didn't like that whole trope. I'm not into it.
Yeah.
The movie, just watching it, it feels super dated. Like the Leisure Suit Larry attire, the broom mustaches, like it just looks so dated. It's gonna be like this new Crow movie with the face tattoos that look very right now. In 30 years, if someone watches it, they're gonna be like, man, why'd they do that? Why couldn't they go classic?
So a cursive script eyebrow tattoo is the womb broom mustache of the 2020s. Oh
yeah, for sure. Yeah, and so they should have just not done that. It just seems super dated, and it didn't have to be, because we've watched lots of movies from the 80s that didn't feel
feel modern.
Yeah, they feel modern. They didn't feel weirdly dated. Like, of course, the cars are older, but everything else felt normal.
Yeah,
this did not.
Yeah.
Also, it was 90 minutes, but it felt like it felt longer. It felt like 2 hours, because you get nothing for 45 minutes.
Yeah.
I mean, I do like the sleuthing about that occurs in there during that, I don't know, 30 to 45 minute time period, that middle piece. Mm-hmm. It was not bad, but I wanted more Werewolf Cult. This was just, it took too long to get to the goods. I would have rather have seen more arguments between them, or more conflict or whatever. Like, let me know a little more story on the werewolves.
Yeah. I mean, especially after reading the book, I've thought a lot of how would I adapt this, because I really liked the book a lot more than I liked the movie. And I think you're right. Even if you don't see werewolves until late in the movie, we can still see more werewolf culture. There's still time while we're in the colony to kind of see more of their weird habits and wolfy things that they do.
Yeah.
No, I agree with that too.
So, what's your rating?
Like I said at the jump, I think this is a more significant, more influential movie than it is a good movie.
Okay.
But I think that its sort of impact on the genre and its significance does get it a 3-star rating.
Okay.
I toyed with the 2. I'll be honest. I've over the course of between when I watched it and now, I've been at a 2 occasionally, and then I kind of come back up to a 3. But I think how influential it was warrants a 3.
Okay. I've been vacillating between a 2 and a 3 pretty close. And I'm just going to go with the 2.
Okay.
The first 20 minutes of the movie, just absolute garbage. Just scrap it. It's just trash. The middle part very snooze. And
that's my favorite part. I like the snooze. The middle 30 minutes is my primo.
And then the last part was cool. But really, like, when I got done with this movie, I was jotting some things down in my notes and stuff, and I'm like, Nick picked another stinker. But that's not fair to you. You mostly pick really good movies and things that I'm usually surprised that something's a lot better than I thought.
Yeah.
But I didn't actually enjoy this movie. Yeah. I recognize that there are parts of it that are influential and important, but I would not watch it again, and I would not recommend that anybody else watch it unless they are very much a horror movie enthusiast who wants to see something that was influential. It's kind of like if you really like a band and you listen to their influences, but the influence isn't what you're into. Yeah. It's just a thing that those guys were into or whatever. It's like that. Watch this only if you're seeking background knowledge of the genre. Don't watch it for entertainment, because it's not entertainment.
I basically agree with you on that. We're very close to the same point of view on this.
I was glad it was only 90 minutes.
I felt the same way. I was just like, I did not. There's parts of it I like, but I didn't enjoy it overall. No, we're in the same boat, and I think our ratings are valid. I think those are both pretty fair ratings.
All right, well, let's take a quick break, and then we'll come back with the Vault of Darkness.
Before we delve into the Vault of Darkness, we ask that all initiates of the cult follow us on your favorite social media platforms at Nightshade Cult.
If you've enjoyed this content, help us grow the cult by sharing it with like-minded people and leave us a review wherever you listen.
Yeah, and we're on Blue Sky now. We added one more social media platform.
Oh, man.
Yeah, we're living in the future, baby.
All right, so you want to go first? You want to pull something from the vault?
Okay, I'll go first. Part of the reason why I wanted to do this movie was because I had just recently rewatched a Joe Dante movie called The Burbs from 1989.
Oh, man.
And loved it. The Burbs is so good.
It is good.
And I was like, so I was on and I've always loved Gremlins. So I was on kind of like a Joe Dante is a underrated king, and we need to go back and watch the Howling.
King.
Yeah, and then it was like, oh well, the Howling didn't quite measure up to The Burbs.
Yeah.
So if you're not familiar with The Burbs, it's a 1989 American black comedy directed by Joe Dante and starring Tom Hanks, Carrie Fisher, Bruce Dern, Corey Feldman. Their quick synopsis is: an overstressed suburbanite and his neighbors are convinced that the new family on the block is part of a murderous satanic cult. And so it's basically a bunch of suburban dads going crazy, sort of investigating the creepy Romanian family that's moved into their neighborhood that they imagine are murderers.
I haven't seen it in forever, but I remember liking it.
And it's funny. It's very funny. It's kind of one of the last movies of Tom Hanks as mid-budget comedy star era. Shortly after this, he does like Philadelphia and then Forrest Gump, and like becomes Tom Hanks' international movie star. He's still at this point Tom Hanks sort of
Tunnels and Trolls.
Yeah, Mazes and Monsters.
Mazes and Monsters. Yeah. There we go. That's peak Tom Hanks.
He's Tom Hanks, star of Bachelor Party. Tom Hanks, star of Splash. He does these sort of mid-budget comedies all the way through the 80s. And The Burbs is one of his best.
Yeah.
And it's just a great. He gets gradually kind of more and more unhinged over the course of the movie. Of course, Carrie Fisher is always great. It's just a really fun movie, and honestly, like, it was the Joe Dante I wanted to see direct this movie. You know what I mean? I wanted to see Joe Dante with all of his directorial power and his sort of way of blending horror and comedy together. There wasn't enough of that in The Howling.
I want to see a David Lynch werewolf movie. I think that's what I would like to see.
I would be very into that. Yeah, I would like to see that too. So anyways, The Burbs is my pull from the Vault of Darkness. What are you pulling out?
All right, so just a peek behind the curtain. I always pick my Vault of Darkness stuff after I watch the movie.
Yeah.
Because I want to make it relevant in some way. It's not strictly required that it be relevant, but it helps. It's on theme. So I was looking for something from the 80s or something. I'll be honest with you, I was looking for a shit movie so I could recommend a movie on the caliber of this movie just to troll people and pretend like I loved it. I couldn't find one that I could muster the enthusiasm. The closest thing I could find was Howard the Duck. That I was going to go for.
That's a bad movie, but I do love Howard the Duck.
Yeah, exactly. So I thought I could fake it well, but I actually thought about it and I was like, no, I'm just going to recommend something I actually legitimately like.
That's good.
That I think everyone should watch. And it just so happens that it's retro in nature, but a new property. I think everyone should go and open up your Prime streaming video and watch Fallout.
Oh, okay.
It's not related to werewolves. There's mutations and there's crazy monsters in it. But that's about as close as it gets. But really, this is just the best.
Big mutant bear.
Yeah. This is just the best show I've seen in 2024. Like, this is the best show I've seen in a while. Like, I really liked it.
Fallout was shockingly good. I've been very sort of trepidatious and skeptical
because we both logged a lot of hours in Fallout games.
And then that first episode, or the first two dropped, right? Together. And I was like, well, this is really good, super compelling. And I think you messaged me like immediately after watching it.
Yeah.
And which is always a strong sign that something is really strong. We kind of were on the same page right from the jump.
Like, Walton Goggins is just amazing. He's amazing in everything, pretty much. But as the ghoul, he's just sinister. Like, I love him in this movie. Like, and I love our movie. It's 8 episodes. It's basically like an 8-hour movie. But like, and in the flashback stuff when he's like this Hollywood actor in the 70s, and
the 2070s.
It's just so compelling. I love this show. I'm so glad that it got renewed for a second season. I enjoyed all 3 of the character perspectives that they followed in the show. I wasn't sure I was gonna like Maximus very much because he starts off as kind of a shitbird, but the Brotherhood of Steel is one of my favorite factions, and I'm like, man, this isn't how you rep the Brotherhood. And then it actually turns out he's pretty cool dude. Like, I like Maximus.
So that's Aaron Moten plays Maximus, and Ella Purnell plays Lucy McLean. And those are the other two leads,
and they're fantastic.
They're really good.
Ella Purnell was surprisingly good. Like, she was excellent.
She's good, and she's so like plucky and chipper and like bubbly.
Something terrible happens and she's like, well, okie dokie.
Yeah. She's so good. And like, they all embody the different cultures of the world, you know, of the Fallout world.
There's like the Wastelander, the Vault Dweller, and then the casual fascist.
Yeah. See, it's funny. You love the Brotherhood. I hate the Brotherhood. But I did like Maximus, and I liked his who's his homie that ends up sabotaging themselves.
Yeah, I can't remember their name, but it's just like a really cool character. And I think if you are, if you're not normally into sci-fi stuff, you should still give this a shot, because I posted about this on my socials. I said, hey, I watched this thing and I really liked it. I don't throw out a lot of recommendations like that. So I had a few people, like colleagues, people I work with, and some friends from non-nerdy circles message me or talk to me when we ran across each other and like, hey, I saw your post and I went and watched one episode and I was instantaneously hooked.
Yeah.
I loved it. And I don't even like that stuff. I've never played the game. Everyone likes it.
It is like unequivocally good. Like, it's not just good for a video game show. It is good, period. And
that's rare.
It is rare. Like, I mean, because so much of the stuff we watch is like obligation television. Like all the Star Wars and Marvel stuff.
Yeah, this is my scene. I have to watch it.
You watch it so that you're not behind when the next thing comes out, but you stopped enjoying it around Endgame or The Last Jedi. Or
it was like the last 2 seasons of Game of Thrones.
Yeah. Fallout, even, it's like, this is a video game. That doesn't matter. That doesn't matter. But it also, if you do play those games, it rewards you constantly.
Oh, so many Easter eggs.
Yeah, but not like pandery, shitty Easter eggs.
No, they're just little things.
And like world building, just the stuff you see around. Like anyone that's played those games, you see stuff that you would scavenge.
Yeah, like
constantly.
It's so funny. It's like, oh, look at the metal oscillating fan. There's springs in that.
Yeah.
I would steal that to get the springs.
Yeah, there's so much more depth to it if you've played it. But none of that's when if you just as a normal person watch Fallout, you sense the consideration that goes into it, even if you don't understand it.
Yeah, it's obviously very carefully made. And I find it really cool that Bethesda had just record-breaking concurrent playership and across all Fallout titles. Their online version, Fallout 76, Fallout 4 has sold ridiculous amounts of copies in the last month. Everyone's buying Fallout, and so it's really cool. It's tomorrow as of our recording, but when this drops, it will have been out for a few days. They're releasing a new update of Fallout 4. They're releasing a native PlayStation 5 client with all new updated graphics and everything, and they're integrating a bunch of the DLCs just into the core game. They're doing the same with the new PC release. It's basically kind of like they'll often do like a Game of the Year release.
Yeah.
This is kind of like Game of the Decade release version of it.
Yeah.
So I'm going to buy that and play it again with the new version of everything because it's been a hot minute.
What faction will you do this time? Or have you done all of them already?
I've done all of them already because, like I said, I've logged a lot of hours in this game. But I'm probably going to do, probably do the Railroad.
Did you do the Raider DLC?
I did do the Raider DLC.
Okay, so you could do it as a Raider.
Just be a Raider.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm getting old. I like to play the good guys in games these days.
That's good.
Like when I played Baldur's Gate, I was a paladin, and I was a good guy paladin.
Yeah. I did Railroad. That was
they're the good
almost
guys.
The only option. I can see going
the Institute. Yeah,
the Institute betraying the Institute at the end. Spoiler for a 10-year-old game or whatever. But, that was a tough choice.
There are a lot of endings that you can get based on your choices. And so I'm going to give it a shot.
I'd like if they came out with some remastered editions of like New Vegas and the earlier games that I haven't played.
Oh, yeah. New Vegas is the best storyline of any of the games by far.
And I know I talked a bit with our pal Ed about that. And there's no like good ending. It's all of them.
Shades of gray,
yeah. All of them involve some sort of heinous something happening. So
because it's Fallout. This is how
Fallout's
it goes.
Tough. Yeah. Okay. I co-sign
all right.
that.
Well, I'm glad that even though it's not related to a mediocre werewolf movie, it's something I legitimately celebrate and would want everyone to watch.
Yeah.
So we'd like to thank you for joining the Nightshade Cult.
Until we meet again, we're wishing you unpleasant dreams.